Hey there, Dango Stu here. Today's video is about making and installing the steel shims under the engine mounts and is proudly sponsored by MarineEngine.com. Alright, on the way back from Bundaberg I stopped into a steel supply store in Brisbane and bought the steel I needed so I can get on with these engine mounts, so let's get making them. These are the shims, the metal shims I'm putting in. You can see they've got a bit of sort of a lip here. I'm not sure how they were cut. They were cut by the steel supply place, which is why it's such a nice smooth cut, but just going to clean it up so A, I don't cut myself on them, and B, I've got a little bit of a bevel for welding them in. Got to say, I think it was $5 a cut, and with thick steel like this, it's money well spent. The time, the noise, the dust, and the cost of grinding discs or whatever, you know, or plasma cutting it and cleaning the plasma cut up, it's just the best $5 you can ever spend getting the steel supply place to cut stuff to size if this is what you're after. Alright, to do this, I've just put straight edge on the 8-inch mark, so 8-inch is a little bit over. I think it's a, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch I think. 1/8 of an inch over this side, so they line up, and then just come in 1.5, in 1.5. And that gives us our 5-inch centers centered on the plate. I don't actually have any form of tripod here, but my plan now is to use a punch exactly on them, then drill a pilot hole and go from there. I need them to be pretty accurate in their positioning. I'm going to make one, test fit it. If it's good, I'll make the others. Okay, plate drilled up alright, so now I'm going to have a go at tapping these threads and putting the studs in. The studs here are actually too long, so I'm going to put some nuts on them, cut them down, wind them off, clean it up a little bit. Probably just need to cut about 1 inch off or something, maybe 1.25 inches. So I'm just going to put a couple of nuts on this A so that I can, you know, repair the thread a bit when I pull them off, and also so I can put them in the vise when I'm cutting them. Obviously we're cutting from this end because the short end is the end that goes into the plate. The right tool for the job here is the hacksaw, but that takes effort, so I'm going to use an angle grinder. These are actually a little bit hard to tap because I think the spec for a 12mm metric hole is maybe like 10.7. It actually changes based on thread pitch. So I drilled it at 10.5. So it's actually going to be a little bit tight, but we'll get there. Yeah, it's a bit too much, isn't it? I bought an 11mm drill bit as well in case this turned out to be too hard. But I'd rather be a little bit under spec than over, so there's more thread, it'll be stronger. Just means the tap needs to do a little bit more work. Although I've got to say, this bow lube really does do wonders, made the drilling much easier too. I'm pretty impressed with it. Alright, time to put these cut down studs in two minds whether to put some Loctite in, but to be honest, I really don't think it's necessary. Could do a little tack weld on the back if I was really worried. I may have issues down the track and want to replace one or two, so let's not go overboard. I've fallen back into the habit of assuming you guys have all done this kind of thing a million times before, but if you haven't, what the idea here is that I'm trying to wind the stud into the base plate. And you do that by using 2 nuts. Put one on, about yay far, put another one on the top. Then I'm going to use the shifter to undo the top one the spanner to do the top one up, and you kind of ram them tightly in towards each other. Then you can use the top one to spin the stud in or out. Although for out you would use the bottom one. And it just saves buying the fancy kind of cam lock stud tools, which I do have somewhere but can't find. Alright, just the big one to go now. The non-threaded part of the stud here is actually bedding into the plate quite nicely. There's no way that's going to vibrate loose. So the plan now is to connect the engine to the brackets to the mounts to the shims, and the shims to the rails. Easy. Yep. As a little aside, I'm getting a warning that my bank 0, since I've been away, has gone low. State of charge 5%. It actually gave a warning, not just not just a case of monitoring. It gave me an alert. So obviously our solars had an issue while I've been away. So let's look into that. So interestingly, the red arc solar regulator is saying charging and battery output okay, according to the little chart here. Flashing green is charging, and on the battery side, solid green is battery output okay. Battery flat means it should be red. So this means we've got a bit of conflicting information between the Bolmar battery monitor and the red arc solar regulator. So let me check the connections to the Bolmar battery monitor. Maybe that's a problem. So this is a classic case of why boats need monitoring. Here we've got 2 bilge pumps running from separate battery banks, 24 volt battery bank, 12 volt battery bank, both being charged by solar, and water's above them already. So the 12 volt battery bank is charged currently from the 24. So I'd say we've got flat 24 volt house and a flat 12 volt house, which is why our bilge pumps are no longer working. Alright, I don't have them set up properly yet, but we do have our battery chargers installed. So I'm going to put one battery charger onto each of the outputs from the generator, run it for a while, get some power back into the batteries, then we'll figure out what's gone wrong. Initializing is where it's at now, just assessing the batteries, I guess. I'm not expecting any huge problem with the starter batteries because they're not connected to anything at the moment. But the house has been connected to these bilge pumps and the fridge the whole time I've been away. So this is the error I was getting before. Low state of charge.
Looking below again, I can see the chargers had gone out of initialization and into a fast charging mode.
Slowly coming up from 5 now to 7. I'm going to make the ultimate sacrifice and unplug the fridge. This is what the battery chargers are putting in now they're connected to the generator. So pretty good charge rate, which is nice. Alright, so this grey you can see on the sides is a weld through zinc primer. That way I can do a weld along here. Then this is an epoxy kind of enamel type thing. So Eddie's here to help get them in. Pedley might help too. We'll see what happens. But we're going to have a bit of a beer and a planning meeting, and then we'll do it. Thanks. How old is Eddie now? He's getting old, dog. 7 or 8. 7 or 8. Not a spring chicken anymore, Eddie. The outlet pipe for the exhaust manifold cooling actually leaks a little bit. I've never had it off, so I should put a new gasket in there anyway. But also it hits here, so I'm going to take this off for now. Alright, let's see how much coolant pours out of here. Lots. Oops. There we go, just put that there. So, pretty bad gasket there, but that's okay. Clean the threads, new gasket, grease on the bolt threads. It'll be better for it anyway. Just 2 for now. Oh, 4. 4 is 2. Thank you, sir. Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, maybe. Oh, yeah, can you just pull the chain just a little bit more?
Which one am I going?
The one closest to the starboard side.
And so you're lifting up?
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Yep.
Bit more?
A little bit more. Got it, that's alright. That'll do. Oh.
Isn't that right, Eddie?
Alright, that'll do for now.
Groovy little contraption.
It's cool, isn't it?
I'm not known for my strength.
No. Well, none of us are. But they are. Given that's a ton.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Alright, now here's the tricky bit. When you're on the other side, that pulls it down, but I think you've got to give it a bit of a hard jerk to get it to start coming down.
Okay.
It's sort of, it won't fall, but it will stick a bit. Yeah, that's it. Then if you pull that, it should come down. Yeah, beautiful. Alright, hang on a sec. Can we give I've just got to give it a little shove towards the port side.
Side? Here we go.
Actually, there is a... Yeah, your foot's fine, yeah. Yeah, so we've got to get it to drop a little bit as it comes down. Otherwise, there's a crowbar in the tinny.
Okay.
Yeah, let's use the crowbar. Actually, you can even, if you push with the crowbar, I can even pull the chain from here. If you can get... Nah. Come out here, pedals. Come out forward of here. Yeah, right out here, I reckon. Can you get there or not? Yep, there we go. All right. So, chuck me... Yeah, can you lower it? Or do you want me to take the other chain, or...?
No, are you ready?
Yeah. Cool. Nice. All right, actually, it could even come back a little bit your way. Yeah, beautiful.
Okay.
Little, yeah.
And down?
Yep, down. Yeah, nice. Perfect. Oh, hang on.
Is that sitting or?
No, it's good. No, that's... yeah, that's good. All right, just down.
Down?
Yep. Hang on a sec. Yep.
Yeah, I've got a problem with my crowbar.
Oh,
It's on that bolt.
Oh, okay. Can it come out again or not?
I might have to take it up again.
Is it really?
Okay.
Oh, it's really stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Watch out. Oh yeah. Ready?
Yep. Nice. All right. No, that's still pretty good. Maybe just give it a little kick over with your foot if you can. Yeah, it's pretty good.
And down?
Yeah, down if you can. Yeah, nice.
More?
Yeah, just go all the way down now. Just let it slack off. Nice one.
You must be sitting down.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's down.
Okay.
Is there slack in the chain?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, we're going to lift the back of the motor up now, but I'm going to try and push it forward a little bit at the same time.
Let's try.
Yep.
Here we go.
All right.
Is that going up?
Yeah, I think so. Yep. Oh, hang on.
Okay.
Let me get that ratchet strap more slack on it. This is just a ratchet strap I put on to stop it falling off the rail in Bundaberg. One of several. But all right, it's got plenty of slack. All right, let's go.
Okay.
Yep.
Keep going.
Yep. I gotta get.
And more?
Yeah. I've got
More?
Yeah, I've got to get high enough to put the mounts in again.
Why is that one bigger?
Because this one...
Is that a wider plate?
No, it's wider because this engine mount used to tuck in under the gearbox.
Okay.
And there was no room to put it that way. So it's now out wide of the rails. So...
Don't you like working when it's not sunny?
When it's what?
When it's not sunny.
Oh, it's heaps better. All good. What's the worst that can happen?
Well, you can't get it out. Chain?
Oh, yeah. Got to get that on the big jobs. Alright. That's that one. Alright, come on down.
Going down?
Yep. Alright. I think if just enough slack, we can take the... It's actually looking pretty good. I mean, I can see how bad it is, but for the absolute first drop in, it's not too bad. Alright. I reckon we just get enough slack on it, take it off now.
Okay. It's off.
In the wheelhouse,
Yep.
on the floor at the right, there's a red bag, I think it is, a tool bag.
Yeah.
And there should be a roll of spanners there.
The canvas roll up.
Yeah. Can you just check me that?
The whole lot?
Yeah. Thank you. Dad's here helping me with a bit of installation. Say hi.
Hi guys.
There we go. And just getting a few of the last little bits cut that go up under here. We've also put 100 litres of diesel each side, so I'll put the dipstick in again and we'll see what it looks like. Once again, just going to put it in till it rests rather than pushing it at all. Wow. Yeah, even 100 litres doesn't show, so it must have just wiped. So the reason the dipstick doesn't work is this, I'll show you. The hull comes down at a bit of an angle, then it goes to a chine, to the V. That's a bit steeper than the boat really is, but you get the idea. Then we have a fuel tank that comes up like this. Not proportional, but you kind of get the idea. The filler is here. At the moment we've got 100 litres of fuel sitting in the bottom, wherever it is, 500 litre tank. If we put a dipstick down, it goes down. At some point, it hits the boat here, hits the hull, before it gets anywhere near the top of the diesel. Few ways around this. One is to find something flexible, get it to go down and actually sort of follow around here. There's no longer a linear relationship between the level and where it is on the stick, but that doesn't matter. You just put 100 in, mark 100, put 200 in, mark 200, 300, 400, 500, whatever. Then what you need to do is actually mark the top of the filler here so that you don't accidentally put it in too far and have it, you know, curling round like this. So that's fine, that's possible. Another option is a sight glass. You cut and weld two bungs in, bit of clear tube. Trouble is, you know, you have a fire in the engine bay, the tube melts, the diesel comes out. The other option is you actually have valves here, which I think Brewpeg's installing, where the valves open, you take a sight reading, the valves close. If this breaks, diesel doesn't leak out. And I believe that is valid for survey requirements. Another option is you can get, it's ultrasonic or something, that actually sounds through the steel, a bit like tapping on it, and get an electronic reading up at the wheelhouse. And I'm thinking that's the way I'd actually like to go. This may be what we do, the flexible stick in the meantime, but ultimately I think a fuel gauge on the dash that doesn't involve piercing the fuel tank at all is kind of, you know, pretty much the best you can get. So we know what we're at. We've got 100 litres, just haven't got a dipstick yet. Fine. Definitely enough to start the boat. There's no way 100 litres isn't above the pickup, so that'll get us going. What I need to do now is start this alignment process. I'm not dragging my heels on it, but I've never done it, and I'm a little bit reluctant about it, to be honest. Don't get me wrong, it's not rocket science. So what I'm going to do is actually start the process now. It's a terrible day. We're also going to be a bit scuppered, sorry. When it started raining today, I've got the hatch off a bit, but hang on, I'm going to close the door. It's getting that bad. Despite the rain, I'm going to jump in the engine bay, and I'm going to have a go at aligning the flanges. Now, I'm not going to align them left to right or in this dimension, but I am going to align them in the dimension that the bolts affect. The reason for that is when I move it away from the prop shaft, any alignment left to right I do will be thrown out entirely anyway. Although it may change ever so slightly, there is some benefit in getting the angle right while the two flanges are actually up against each other, because this is the problem I'm facing with this install. I'll quickly show it on paper, because I've described it a few times, but I get quite a lot of comments that show that people aren't quite getting the challenges in doing this alignment. So I may as well make that a bit clearer, just so that people's comments and suggestions perhaps are more relevant to what we're actually up against. All right, here's a rough idea of what we've got with our propeller. We have a cutlass bearing in here that the propeller runs on. Then this is the stern tube. Now, where this propeller shaft has been running on the cutlass bearing, it's ever so slightly thinner than where it hasn't been. And that makes pushing the propeller shaft out quite tricky. And we've got maybe 40 millimeters between, well, actually what is a rope cutter here. So 40 millimeters between rope cutter and the cutlass bearing, which means pushing it in further is possible, but only to a very small amount. All right, then it comes through a stuffing box here, pops out, there's a flange. Then on the back of the gearbox, there's also a flange. And when you align a motor, you're getting these two flanges perfectly aligned together. That's what you're doing. Trouble is, you've got to move a ton of motor here to do that. Yes, you can have universal joints, flexi couplers, all sorts of stuff. I don't have room. I've actually got very little room between the back of the gearbox and the start of the stuffing box. If you look at the specs for all these universal joints, dripless seals, all that kind of stuff, I just don't have space to fit them. So we're stuck with the technology we've got. Now, I also have a 37mm Polyflex coupler going between the metal on metal. And that's what this looks like here. But apparently these aren't, even though it looks really nicely machined, aren't accurate enough to do your alignment in situ. So normally what you do is pull your prop shaft in, do your alignment, push it back, put your coupler in, pull the prop shaft forward again, bolt it up, happy days. That's where we're really struggling with this situation. Now, at the moment, the engine is very close to touching this. It's kind of slid down the rails and hit this because the rails slope. This means that now actually isn't a bad time for me to do my alignment metal on metal. Then I'm going to physically move the whole ton of engine back, get my Polyflex coupler in, bring it back, bolt it in. I'm no doubt I can move this prop shaft a little bit forward and back. It's not going to be impossible, but it is going to be quite hard. Certainly not going to slide it. So theoretically, I could bolt the Polyflex coupler to the gearbox, which is what you do first because you have to get to the bolts on the backside. Then you can check the gap between the coupler and the prop shaft. Because of the plastic, it's not as accurate, but I think it will get it accurate enough to drive the boat at low revs and move it. There's two advantages to that. One is I could get it on the hard stand, you know, or beach it or whatever I need to do. You know, there's definitely cheap ways around this. The other advantage is that I can fire the engine up and allow the prop shaft to bed into that cutlass bearing a little bit and make it a little bit easier to move. It's a tight fit, it's going to wear fast. The prop shaft is stainless steel, the cutlass bearing is some sort of fibre resin type thing, I think. Don't quote me on that. So we know what's going to wear first. Don't get me wrong, soft things can wear hard things, you know, water, erode stone, etc. But we know which of the two is going to wear the fastest. So I think there is some advantage to getting the motor fired up and then doing a fine adjustment again afterwards. All right, it stopped raining a little bit, so let's jump in the engine bay, and I'm actually going to start by just adjusting these nuts a little bit just to start doing it for the first time. I think the trouble is, you know, you get caught in this analysis paralysis sort of thing. Let's just get out there, start turning some adjustment nuts on some feet, see how much effect they have, how quickly they affect it. Then you've got a sort of few runs on the board, and maybe coming at the second phase will seem easier. I think, you know, just, you got to be in it to win it. So let's go try. All right, jumping in, it's obvious there's not really any point in even doing that until this overhang cantilevered mount is flat. So, in order to do that, my thought is I'm going to build the gussets, which means measuring this because I want them to be dead flush with the top, come down, under, and then triangle up. I think I'm going to need to make 2 of those. I don't know the exact position of that foot yet, but that's okay because they can sit on the gussets and move. So if I put 2 gussets, not coming back any further than this rib, so if I put one sort of here, one about here, it means that I can still position this, but at least it'll be held flat and level, and then we can do our adjustment. So that's clearly just step 1 I've got to do. I don't think there's any way out of this. So, measure this thickness, go home, cut some gussets. What can I do? One step at a time. All right, calipers are telling me with paint it's 10.2 millimeters. So I'm guessing 10 mil steel with some paint on it. All right, at least we now know where we're at. All right, getting way too unpleasantly working out here now. Apparently it's gonna last like this for a week, so time to do some indoor stuff. All right, time to make these gussets for the starboard aft engine mount. I found a bit of steel in the workshop, which is great. Means I can just get on and make them now rather than running up the road next week. I've got to run up the road and start getting some tubing and everything for making the exhaust, but that's another story. Even D-Squad's hiding under the house to keep out of the rain. You in there somewhere? Who knows? Once again, thanks to the patrons, this is actually now a GoPro Hero 8, which, for the first time in all the GoPro series, has an option to set the flicker reduction for 50 Hz, not 60 Hz, which is what Australia runs on. So hopefully we don't get the fluoro flicker we had before. Before there was no way to turn it off. Alright, so here are the main measurements for our gusset. And for the last 77 millimeters here, we need to come 10 millimeters down, and it's 77. So this is 100. And 77s to here. So this is what we're going to make. Heaps long enough, good. So I'll mark up the 2 triangles, I'll cut it. What have we got here? 113. Slightly annoying. Be good if this was 100 mil thick. I might actually cut 2 gussets that are 177 across and then all the way down to the corner. And then I can always trim the corner. That's probably better than trying to do a long cut through the steel. Alright, first thing I do is just clean up the slag from the old plasma cut on this, so we've got an edge to measure against, to measure from. That reminds me, while I was up in Bundaberg, Damien and I found these earmuffs in Bunnings that have a Bluetooth connection, so you can listen to music while you're working, which I think is a really good idea, because A, it stops it getting boring, and B, it means that you've got a motivation to wear PPE. You know, when I found those safety glasses that were also reading glasses, I found I wore them a lot more because I needed to wear glasses anyway. So it ended up working really well. Damien and I could just whack the headphones on, grinding away for hours. I could be listening to some Iron Maiden, he could be listening to his Def Leppard, and you know, it was actually really good until we started having troubles with dissimilar metal. Sorry. So 177 millimeters. So this is our cutout. $77. All right, there we go. Got my gussets roughly cut now, still need to get a grinding disc onto them and clean them up, but you get the idea. Alright, a few things to talk about before we wrap up. I solved my charging problem by putting a new solar charge regulator in. I had actually fried it, I'm pretty sure. I was putting the main starter cable, which is an unfused cable, managed to short it against a negative, which then welded itself there. It took a while to get off, and I think that's what killed the regulator, so kind of my bad. Anyway, it gave me a chance to upgrade that from a PWM to a MPPT, so we get about an extra 15% charge efficiency anyway, so that's cool. Alright, last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up is what's left to do. I made those 3 to-do lists quite a while ago. I showed you guys, you know, like pre-launch, pre-starting, and sort of sea trial stuff, I think it was. I can't find where I put those, of course, but what I want to do is go through what I have to do between now and starting the engine. Getting kind of a handful of sort of narky comments about, oh, you know, why are you fiddling around with all this stuff? Why don't you just fire it up? You know that's what we want to see. So maybe just relax for a while, let the grown-ups have a conversation about what needs doing, and we will fire it up eventually. Alright, this list should give you some idea how far we are away from the final step, which is start the motor. Still got to fix that broken bolt in the front cover. That involves drilling, tapping, putting a new bolt in. First step of aligning it really for me is moving the engine forward about 50mm. Then I can weld in the shims once I've got it roughly in position, and weld in these gussets. I need to make this alignment coupler, like a metal coupler, to replace the Polyflex one, so I can do the alignment. Then I'll, you know, finally have it locked down, move it back in, put the Polyflex, so a whole lot of stuff. That's a big step. That Jabsco pump we serviced last week, need to install that. Need to install a sea strainer, plumb all that up. Need to install the flow alarm that I showed you guys. I need to wire the whole starter circuit with some relays, a start button in the wheelhouse. Then obviously a shut-off solenoid to turn the engine off again. Haven't got my oil pressure gauge wired up yet. Need to fabricate an entire exhaust system. There's nothing at the moment. Need to install the airbox. This is it here. This is the hole I was hoping to weld up if I hadn't bought the wrong TIG torch. I'll go and change that during the week. This here also is a shut-off flap that a mate of mine, Andrew Tinnick, gave me. So I'm going to clean that up. It needs a new spring here. This spring's split in 2. Clean it up, paint it, new spring, lubricate it, you know, the usual. Where are we? All box. Okay. I got the new Morse cables I took out, so I've got to run the whole new Morse cables. I need to make a new bracket for the throttle cable because it doesn't work now. We made some changes with Adrian when we put the engine together to make it work better, but means the old bracket doesn't work. Need to reassemble the throttle controls. Need to install and wire up the alternator. Need to plumb the raw water outlet for it to go overboard once it's done. There's also a missing pipe from the Jabsco to the heat exchanger. It needs various bits and flexible hose and everything. So that's the air shutoff we just saw. Install that air shutoff. Now I need to add a cable for it. At the moment there's no way of actually activating this. So I'm thinking of just going another shorter Morse cable and a T-handle. So this is a really reliable, completely mechanical shutoff system. Then obviously a few other things, just check the oil and coolant levels. I haven't plumbed the fuel lines in properly yet, and I still need to replace the primary fuel filter. Once that's all done, we can fire it up. So for those of you that were sort of saying, hey, why isn't this week's video about starting the motor? That's why. So yeah, it takes a while, and it does take a lot of patience in some ways. You know, you're really close. You've got an engine sitting in an engine bay, and that's how far away you are from actually turning the key and getting it going. So anyway, next week we'll be pushing on with the alignment, hopefully. You may find that due to the rain, next video is on things like installing the Morse cables, things I can do in the wheelhouse, because I don't want to just sit around while it's raining. I want to get stuff done, but I'm limited in which jobs I can get done. I'll also try and upload videos a little bit more regularly during this process because A, I want some feedback on decisions I'm making, particularly with the alignment. The other reason is that a lot's happening at the moment, and it's kind of nice to group those videos into distinct videos. So, you know, I can get, for example, the Morse cables installed and the throttle control put back together in a day easily, so I may as well just do that as a midweek video. So that's the kind of thing I'll be doing. Alright, well, take care, and I'll catch you soon. See ya. to be impressed by this. I've taught Daffy and Dotty to sit and beg. Oh, look at your leg. Oh, you poor thing. All right. You ready? Sit. Beg. Oh, that didn't go so well. You just scoffed the whole lot. You gobble guts. Daisy's going to get one now. There's your one. Daisy. You're the hardest. Daisy. There you go. You got one. Despite your best efforts, she got one. Hmm? Yes. You didn't get all of them. She got one. Bad luck. All right. Bet your leg's sore after all that running. Good night. Put yourselves to bed.